Welcome everyone, this is Semyon Balabanov and I'm going to show you the latest additions in Project Lavina Beta 6. First of all, I have both 3ds Max and Lavina running, and you can see that Lavina is currently paused by the indicator and the contoured line around the viewport. As soon as I click on Lavina and bring back the focus, it starts rendering again, but as soon as I go to 3ds Max, it pauses. This is a setting in the preferences, which is under files, pause when app loses focus. I'm going to disable that so that I can show you the next feature we've developed. That is a live link between 3ds Max and Lavina. The settings can be found under this menu, and you can see that Lavina currently has start server on application start, which means that Lavina is currently listening on the port 2027. Now this port is important because we're going to be using it later on. You can change it or stop the server or run the server manually. To run the link in the render setup, make sure that you use V-Ray GPU 5. And then in the performance settings, make sure that you turn on distributed rendering and add the localhost 127001 as the only server. Also make sure that the port range is 2027, the one that we have set in Lavina. Additionally, make sure that the Use Localhost checkbox is disabled. That completes the setup on the 3ds Max site, and you can safely start IPR to initiate the live link. Once IPR initializes, you will see Lavina picking up the scene and the live link status bar indicating that. There is also a blue border around the viewport to indicate Lavina is in live link. I've closed the settings and minimized the VFB to have more space. Now, live link means that everything you do in 3ds Max will be propagated in Lavina. For example, scrubbing the time slider or moving the camera. And you can see that the objects that have been animated are updated in real time. I'm going to set the time of day to be a bit darker and change a few parameters of the lights. For example, the temperature of these lights. I'm going to make it colder. Or I can bring this back to a more neutral color, 5000. And I can just disable them altogether and scrub to a later time in the day. Now, one thing you may notice is there is no direct illumination coming from the sun because there is no opacity tracing. Let's fix that by going to Advanced Options and switch on opacity tracing. This will successfully let direct illumination in the interior, and I'm going to set the sun in a more desirable location. We've also added these blue icons in the viewport or gizmos to indicate non-area light sources for easier selecting and manipulation. I'm going to turn off the Move tool to hide them in this current session. I've set up this time lapse using the 3ds Max daylight system and selecting V-Ray Sun and then animating the time of day parameter. You can see the hours, minutes and seconds being animated as I scrub the timeline. This was done by animating the solar time parameter as shown in the curve editor here. Let me zoom a bit. And the keys range from 6 to about 19. Another interesting feature of the live link is that I can play the animation and observe the changes in real time in Lavina. Since the exposure is a little bit darker, I'm going to change that in the camera parameters. Let's adjust the white balance temperature first. Lower that for a colder feel, or increase it for a much warmer one, or bring it back to more neutral, such as 5000. You're also free to move objects around. In this case, I'm going to select the whole table and reposition that while looking in Lavina to see the ray traced result. Additionally, I can just start exploring my scene. Let's go in full screen directly while I'm in live link, and this will not change the original camera position. If I adjust the time slider, the camera is going to be reset to its original position. To illustrate the next addition in Lavina, I'm going to get closer to the pillows, and since there is an overburn spot here, I'm going to lower the highlight burn to something like that. Let's open the material editor, and I have prepared a V-Ray Triplanar map with a texture of a wool fabric that I'm going to use in this case. I'm going to lower the highlight burn even more and adjust some of the parameters of the Triplanar map. For example, let's increase the scale so that we can see the pattern, something like 30, maybe that's a bit too much. Yeah, let's lower it even more, maybe 15. Yep, this is okay. And the blending parameter, which decides how much the Triplanar mapping is going to blend in each other. So you can see the seam here, and by increasing the blending, the seam gets removed. We can also adjust different rotation and frame offset, but I would like to insert only randomness here. So I'm going to enable random texture offset and random texture rotation, which on second thought looks a bit unnatural, so I'm going to disable the random rotation. Finally, I'm going to create a composite map, use the original fabric texture as the base layer, and add the Triplanar mapping on top of that. I'm going to use more darkening blending mode, for example, multiply, which will throw in some variation, and let's lower the opacity so that it's more subtle. Okay, we can see both textures applied. And I'm going to go back to the original point of view and apply a LUT table. To see all the new features, you can head out to the documentation website of Project Lavina, where you can also find the download link for the latest version. As always, share your comments and your feedback in our forums. Thank you for watching and stay safe.